Welcome, Lyrical Ones, episode 94. I am Cineo, joined, as always, Alfluent. How are you doing this evening?
Feeling real good. Just channeling that inner Sid Vicious. Just just hanging in there. It's another good day. I'm happy to be here. Gratitude is on 12 right now. Might as well be 100. Stepping in it, swimming in it, sleeping in it. Macho King, Randy Savage, elbowing in the gratitude. Oh, yeah. Rest in honor
Oh, yeah,
to Macho
brother.
King. Yeah. It's a it's a wonderful day. I think as creatives and as artists, it's on us to present so many different sides and perspectives to the human experience. And I think I'm really grateful for that today, this week, when it's looking bleak for a lot of people. You got all types of stuff going on. Before we get to that, Senio, how you living?
Appreciative, so appreciative. Um, having conversations with people recently and knowing that I'm so thankful where I'm at. There's many reminders, and having that appreciation is just ever present right now. Last week you talked about a lot of the changes that I've gone through. You know, going from working for others to working for myself, working for and exchanging that for working with in every sense of the word. It's felt when it falls on you, when the responsibility, the risk, it all falls on you, and the reward comes with that. And so I'm super appreciative of that process. I'm so appreciative of being in this position. Really, you know, counting my blessings. Um, and yeah, like just the conversations I'm hearing, more and more people are ready for change. And it sounds is either you either you're being forced to make a leap, right? There are situations where you can be forced. You can have unforeseen events and circumstances happen and you're being forced to make a change. And then there's some where you realize you need to make a change, but you need certain things in place, right? I can't judge it, can't call it bad or good. All I can say is I know people need certain things to make those moves they need to make for themselves. So I'm just appreciative because I am learning from, or it's reinforcing what I know now. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
I feel that. I really do enjoy learning and growing. I am a glutton for understanding, and I really like to experience things firsthand. But if I can, I'll take a second or third hand lesson, fourth and fifth hand lesson. Tell me about a quote from a book. I guess that's about as fourth as fifth hand as you could get. But applying it right, applying the lessons is something else. I know sometimes we're relearning lessons, and ancestors be like, "Go throw this right back at you till you learn it." And those sometimes end up being the greatest triumphs, the 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 thing that aligns with your purpose. And as change happens, I think it's on us to decide our role in that change, decide our perspective of that change, and then decide from the change, is there something for me to hold on to or release or both to a point where I increase my comfort zone. And some change we're familiar with, but the new change can be stressful. And that new change can mean actually bringing up old stuff, old lessons, so that you can put your best foot forward into your evolution. And I think sometimes people Pokemon don't get enough credit because it's not easy to take a creature and evolve them 2 or 3 times, so you know that's still that's the same creature. It's just a few little things that let you know that a Raichu used to be a Pikachu. But one thing that did not happen is the Raichu was not forced into evolution. Because Pikachu's gotta be like, yeah, I rock with this Thunderstone, or or not, and I rock with this Pokemon trainer, or not. Man, Pokemon always took the time in their movies to talk about the presence of science and its uh, ability to push technology past where we thought it could go, and then past where people are comfortable with it. And see, newspapers was like that, cars was like that, trains was like that, planes, boats. Depending on where you were, technology was making people uncomfortable. You had radio, you had TV, even the telegram. People was like, I gotta type, dude, what? Morse code for how long? What? No, nah, I ain't messing with that. But again, when it became useful, I think in times of war, it became something that was really important. And same thing with the internet. The internet was not a vibe for a lot of people. And then it was very challenging at times for people to acquire or use the internet until it became more mainstream. Now you can it literally, if you wanted to, get it in most homes. But folks were not comfortable with it. They had to expand their comfort zone. They had to see the change and choose for themselves, but take the information they were given from people around them and say, this change might be what's part, what's in it for me. And I think when people are ready for change, it will show up in their actions. And until they're ready for it, they will talk about it or forget about it. But folks is ready for change, are already doing a lot of things it takes to see change happen. But they're not all doing it together, and they're all not doing it with the same goal in mind. So it's important that you people find those folks that are like-minded, that you check in on them and their reason for showing up, their reason for being there. And they don't always have to align, but hopefully you find what you're looking for in camaraderie, community as folks move forward. Like people that you talk to this week who are going through stuff, like how did any of them express to you a clear idea or vision forward for them? And if so, how far ahead did they see?
So thinking about these two instances, these two individuals that I'm most calling on, because there's other conversations I've had around that, even within recent weeks. But thinking about the ones that stick out the most, they both see what's down the road. It's just them acknowledging what has to happen right now, right? And as that acknowledgement sometimes can seem daunting when you realize like this is what I got to do, right? Like quoting that ever so, oh, see, this is how they get me, right? When you can't see me, you can still hear me. But it's one of those things where, yeah, it's like if you got to eat the frog every day, then you're going to eat the frog every day. But if you hold off, right, then what ends up happening is you got frogs waiting for you to be eaten. Now, the core of it is just imagining having to eat the frog is a daunting task, right? Just thinking about having to eat something that you may find disgusting is something that may be so displeasing. But the consistency, right? Holding to the fact that you got to do it every day, right? This is something that has to get done. But if you wait, then it adds up. You got something waiting for you that's more gross, more displeasing, or toxic, or whatever you want to call it, than if you just handled it day in, day out, right? And I think that's the thing that I can see in my colleagues, my friends, my family, is that they can acknowledge that they need to do it and they're willing to do it. It just doesn't change the fact that they eating frogs every day.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. This is it's like what's the movie? Lego movie, where he didn't know that he's eating frog every day, basically. He thought it was all good and he was living his best life according to the way that he defined his life. And then, right, something happens. He says, "Oh, my life has changed right from this moment, and I'm now going to, instead of holding on to my old life, I'm going to release that and start to grasp for what could be, slowly but surely. But first, he had to, right, know himself, know thyself, and right, once he was able to do that, then he was able to master building once he mastered himself. But it also took the confrontation and pain, right, to get to a point where I'm gonna just build and I'm gonna help and I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna change. And so even if that change in an environment, sometimes it's within themselves and like them folks you talk to, right? The change that's coming, right? They may have always wanted something to be a certain way, and now they get to have that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's some people. There's other conversations that are coming to mind in the midst of this where you could tell them, right? You could ask them, do you want me to just listen or do you want my solutions? And they won't even acknowledge that you said it. You could be very intentional, very clear, right? Because again, This is 94 episodes. If it hasn't become clear, I'm a person that cares, that is high on empathy and even more high on solution based strategies and processes, because it matters to me that we can move together. That, if you're within my vicinity, I'm going to give you love, I'm going to give you compassion, right? Going back to what you were saying about being um, an appreciation for learning, right? My appreciation for learning is tied to my love for myself, because the more knowledge that I have, the more I can give and do to myself and others around me. Because I have the knowledge, I have the means to act. I have the means to do. I have either a skill or an idea or a strategy or avenue to expand on and to give other people's access to. And so that's who I am at the core. So people gonna call me because they know I can help them see things from a different perspective that in the moment they may not be able to access. And I'm gonna do it with compassion and love, so they don't feel judged or feel belittled or feel demeaned. They know that there's gonna be a sense of embrace that may not be readily available in other areas of their life. Even with that, you could tell a person, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to give you a solution? And they could still just go 1,000 miles per minute to what they feel they've been wronged or what has happened. And, you know, for me, I'm like, I get it. You've been hurt. There's been harm, and you need space to vent. But in my love language, in terms of what I need you to be clear of our engagement. I need you to be clear of the terms of how we approach in this situation, because it's one thing to say how you feeling, it's another thing to give me room to deal with it as well, right? Because again, we are a community. We reciprocal, right? How are we saying what I need for me to be here, and what do you need from me when I'm available, right?
Right.
And I think that it's important for people to keep in mind, it's not doubt, it's grace.
Yeah.
You don't give people the benefit of the doubt, you give them space for grace. Because when you give them the doubt, you introduce a whole new set of variables that can be harmful, right? Because then you can start making uh, assumptions, right? You won't give yourself the space for discovery, because you're starting to place expectations on what's happening, instead
Mm.
of, let me go into this with a level of curiosity and openness to know I may find something new, or I may learn something, or it just may reinforce what I already know. And I think that, especially at a time like this when there's so much going on and there's so many people giving their perspective on what's going on, it's so important to be very careful of how are we engaging and being present, because are we doing it with an already preconceived notion of what's to come,
Mm.
or are we just willing to embrace and accept that this is what it is, and now I have to determine what is it that I need to do. Because I think that, like, it could go for anything. You could go for your job, right? You come into a situation, there's a role, you have responsibilities, and the further you get into your role, you further you get away from what you were signed up to do. You're wearing
Right.
multiple hats now, right? You're seen for all these different reasons. Or it could be on the other end. You so disenchanted, you don't even want to be here.
Mm.
But then it comes into, right, what is it that you're doing, right? That's really seeing it as it is and not for what you want it to be. Because
Mm.
oftentimes that can also, that's me putting the expectation. I wanted this to be like this. Well, who are you communicating that to? How are you
Mm.
expressing that? Is it accessible, right? Because you could be saying it, but then you got to know who you saying it to, right? Like I'm all the way want to call out code switching, right? It means being inauthentic. But what does it also mean? It means developing a skill set and a language base that other people can understand what you're saying. Because we live in a world where people are going to look twice before they ever listen, especially if they can somewhat see, not even if they have good vision, right? So it's just one
Yeah.
of those things where, it's like thinking about it in that sense, where the people around me, like, some of them ready, some of them not, and that's okay. It's not a judgment. It's just, I also have to be very mindful of how much energy I'm giving, so I don't find myself in a vicious cycle of insanity. And I mean insanity in the sense of doing the same thing expecting a different outcome, right? I'm gonna do the same exact thing, and every time I'm gonna expect something different, when reality is There's slight variations that need to be administered. There's changes, alterations, and if I'm not mindful of that, I'm in insanity.
That's a trippy way to think about it.
I mean, it's insanity, man. It's like it's one thing when you got your form down, right, and you doing repetitions, knowing that this is going to impact growth. It's another thing when you looking at what you're doing and you just plateau and you like, oh, well, I'm not changing how I'm going to eat. I'm not going to change how much I do. I'm gonna do the same thing, and I expect that once I've done it enough, I'm gonna see a difference.
Now, is it like insanity or just like people really do want to be comfortable though, right? And so they find in right they looking for that comfort level, right? Sometimes, right, even with new routines and new thought processes, right? They like, okay, now that I've gotten through that beginner phase, right, I can settle in and they stay in that expectation, right, of a different outcome because of that comfort, right? So then it becomes more of a risk to switch out of what's comfortable, right? Then it becomes something, completely different.
Lyrical ones, new metaphor. For me and all of my ignorant, selfish glory, maintenance, right? Maintenance. Maintenance means there's something wrong with my car, and I got to come out of my pocket $1,200 to get it fixed. Do I want to pay $1,200 to get it fixed? No, but this is the cost of maintenance, right? The cost of maintaining, not the growth, right? Not the expansion of, just the continued maintenance of usage, right? If that's my body, if that's my soul, that's one thing. When the expectation is that there is supposed to be growth, I look at that as not maintenance anymore, right? We're talking about I need to exert, I need to give something in order to get back something more, right? I need to give more to get more, right? And the thing is that, right, comfort comes at a cost. Now, if your comfort is pain and you saying, I don't want to be in pain, but you don't do anything to change that, right? I don't want to be in pain. To me, yeah, you can be comfortable in that behavior and that cycle. Be mindful of the people that you may value or love, me, may not have time or space for you anymore because I'm going to identify that as your level of comfort is harmful to my maintenance and my growth, right? Because I can have both. I can be maintaining myself in certain capacities and I can be growing in other areas, right? There may be certain things where I don't want to push too hard, and there may be other areas where I'm ambitious. But for someone like myself, because this then now we expand into the fabric of society, right? Let's zoom out. There are people who you're gonna believe in, and they have become 100% indoctrinated into that behavior of let's talk about the issue, let's talk about the problem, and every time we have a solution, for every 50, we gonna get two, right? We're gonna have 50 problems, we're gonna get two solutions, right? I'm saying this as a heed to those as midterm elections coming up, right? And I'm saying that because we exist in a world where you're gonna pay taxes, even if you try not to pay taxes, right? Someone wants you to pay taxes if you're making some money in this country, right? We're talking about gas going up, right? Not everyone has the means to not just pay PG&E on a regular basis, but have an electric vehicle, right? We talking about children in Africa mining for nickel, right? Where they're not supposed to be, right? Because on the surface, it's we have everyone here as an adult, right? We talking about the same chips and the metals, the precious metals that need to be used, right? They're burning the wires, right? Burner boys, right? It's more than just a artist, right? There's literal burner boys where they out there burning trash to get the metals out of toxic chemical waste, right? Their life expectancy is low. We exist in a society, right? Where it's so easy to manipulate and distort and change your perspective of what's important And me, it's like I have a goal. I have a goal to have impact in a positive and sustainable way, in a healthy manner, right? Excuse me as I say positive, because positive is more of um my preference base. It's not for everyone. But when I say harm, we can more associate what harm is, right? Harmful things, right? Things that cause destruction or may take away from what it is that we hope to grow or hope to
And
have.
I think folks who are experiencing that harm, right, and want to step away from it, right, grow from it, right, they have to pay with learning from it, right? What's gonna it's gonna cost them to step away from it is to right go through it and learn from it, right? It's like interacting with toxic folks who are narcissistic. Like if you don't know what that looks like, you ain't gonna never get away from it.
Or if you don't know that there's something outside of it, you may not even know that there's something to get away from, right? You may not even know that you need to get away from it because all you know is this. You don't know anything else.
Yeah, and then but when that decision comes, right? I think folks think, oh, it's just gonna disappear. It's just gonna vanish, right? The thing that I don't want in life, and in reality, right? Like you gotta experience it a little more sometimes, right? It's like if I want these arms to grow, I'm gonna have to experience their discomfort. I'm gonna have to experience them working, right? It's like if I want, right, to learn to become, right, more gentle, right, it's gonna take some times of being too aggressive as I learn how to dial it back, right? Like if I want to be more compassionate, it's gonna take some times where I'm inconsiderate still learning how to not be that, right? If I'm gonna right be less people pleasing, right? It's gonna take some times and some instances and some moments, right? And say I learned from this by experiencing it, by learning by appeasing folks and right learning that I didn't want to do that. But the when I say right I want this change in my life, then I gotta look at okay, what is it gonna cost me, right? Not in potential, not in liability, but like what I'm gonna learn? How am I gonna be taught that this is no longer for me? How will I learn it? You know, without experiencing it to some degree for myself, or having experienced it enough already. When I say I want to learn from, or when I say I want to step away from, right? I also am right claiming that there is a way out. Right? I'm claiming that okay, even if I don't know what that way out is, even though if I don't know where to begin, if I say I want out, then I know the truth that there is a way out. And how do I adjust from there? Is up to the individual.
I mean, it's definitely up to the individual. It's people to even accept or acknowledge, right? You love someone, you see them going through something, you want better for them, but at all times they have to want better for themselves. They have to want it. You can't want it for them. You could want it for them, but you could want it for them. Your disappointment's gonna be there. Is your disappointment gonna disrupt your life? Is it gonna disrupt your happiness? Is it gonna disrupt your well being? Is it gonna disrupt your livelihood? Are you willing to take that on? Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to invest and give where you may could you may as well give to others or in other means, right? You may have a situation because I think it's a subtle nuance and balance that everyone has to figure out for themselves. Some people I've seen, they just cut it off. They're like, I'm cool, I don't need it. I don't even want to think about it, right? I'm gonna focus on what I got control over. I'm gonna focus on me and mine. I'm not even gonna waste my time, right? That's how the frame of mind works in some individuals. There's others who, oh no, I'm gonna give, I'm gonna do everything I can, I'm gonna be loyal, I'm gonna be down, I'm gonna do what I can to be there to give. And right, whether or not you have certain security, foundations, anchors to get you through whatever it is you're willing to give, some people find themselves at a disadvantage after a certain point, right? Where they're looking back and they're like, man, I knew I shouldn't have. Man, if I would have known. Again, everyone has to learn what their tolerance is. What is their capacity? Communicate what that is. Know to what level and what degree. Everyone's coming from a different place. Everyone's coming from a different point. I'm of the mindset that the more I have control over my time and my life, the less I have to invest any sense of disappointment in others, right? That doesn't mean I don't
Mm.
have love. That doesn't mean I don't have care or compassion.
Yeah.
Disappointment is a different story, right? Because what it really comes down to is I'm talking about now choice, right? I'm choosing to interpret. I'm choosing to feel a certain way. I'm engaging with my feelings to a level of mastery, right? I'm not saying I have it. I'm saying I want it. I'm saying I want a level of
Mm.
mastery with my emotions to have
Yeah.
supreme control over what I feel because as strongly as I can love, as deep as I can have a connection with you, I've been hurt by those
Mm.
that I've loved. I've been harmed by those closest to me, whether that's family, friends, chosen family, non chosen family, right? That goes every level. I have to make a choice now on how I'm going to respond, how I'm going to choose to take in, how I'm going to choose to let go, right? And
Yeah.
what lens am I going to look at this through, right? Is this going to be one of anger? And then what are the choices that I'm going to make where I'm displaying my anger, my sadness, my regret, my pain? What is it that I'm choosing to do? Because there's choices being made at every interval, right? Now, that's hard for a lot of people because it's like, man, they made me. You made me feel this way. No, to me, it's I gave you access to trigger these responses. I gave you access because I don't give everybody access. I don't know anybody that gives everyone access, right? There may be certain things within me unresolved that when I'm met with it, then it's already predetermined because I predetermined it.
Right.
I already knew. I knew what was gonna happen when I walked into this room. I knew what was gonna happen when I seen him, right? Because I already said in my mind what choices I was gonna make when I got there. Already set in my mind what is it that I was going to do. Now for me, I value peace. I value love. I value compassion. So for me, it's nothing to withdraw myself from a situation where I don't feel comfortable, I don't feel appreciated, right? It's it may take some time to get out of a situation determining on the factors, hence my
Yeah.
job, right? I'm like, I'm gonna leave y'all. I'm gonna leave y'all. I'm gonna leave y'all. And then I left y'all. Right. I gave you a warning. I gave you opportunities to explore what is the possibilities of where we can move forward to repair this relationship, to restore
Mm.
to some degree. And it didn't happen. I gotta go. Same thing goes for personal relationships. Same thing goes for friends and family. Right. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes we don't have time or we don't have these levels of responsibility to keep us here. So it's like, all right, given
Mm.
the level of intricateness or given the
Right.
level of simplicity will then determine a response. But for me, it's a mastery of my choices, my decisions, my life, my emotions, my feelings, my health. It's as much as what I eat, as much as I choose who I speak to, right? And I think that's hard for a lot of people to accept, but I think it needs to be said because you go into school learning English and reading and math, and no one takes the time to talk about the social emotional mastery of things, right? They're like, oh, are you going to go into calculus? And then it's like, no, for what? It does not apply to me and what I'm trying to do for my life.
Mm. Right.
But at all times, you're going to have feelings. At all times, you're going to have thoughts. At all times, there's going to be some connection, right? There's a guy who lives in Japan on an island by himself. He has no clothes. He still has a sister that he has contact with. He still goes into town every so often to get some rice. right? There's a guy that lives in, I believe, Argentina by himself, and he still interacts with people because guess what? I think he has sheep or lamb, and those sheep and lamb, right? They grant him access to certain resources, so he still interacts with people. So as isolated as these outliers are that have been found out by someone, right? No person is totally an island, because these two stories about isolation and independence, as much as they're on their own, to some degree, they still have relationships with the world around them that involve people. So with that, as much as you may not care, as much as you don't give a, as much as you all about you or you all about your day ones, there is some connection you have to others, which means that we've gone through this process of life and we're told we have to go to school, but we're not trained on how to engage with ourselves. We're not trained on how to engage on an interpersonal, social, emotional level with the world around us. And so, a lot of what I'm saying is in respect to that. It's in respect to your self love, right? It's in respect to your ability to take care of yourself and heal from whatever harm is in your way. Because harm, right? We could talk about the lofty rich people who inherit money. We could talk about it all live long day, like, oh, they ain't got nothing wrong. But then it's like, I recently heard, if you had all the money in the world and you could solve all your issues, you still gonna have problems that money can't solve.
That's interesting because right, problems come and go, and like how you navigate them right is different, per the circumstance. And so I just I just know that when you choose how you navigate the problem, whatever it is in your life, um, sometimes it's important to know whether you need help or not. Um, and I think for all the tools and all the having all the money in the world, like you got the problems you know of, right, and the problems you don't know of, right? Like you said, some folks don't know, even that there is an exit from things, right? Some people have latched on to the identity that they've been entertaining for so long that they don't even believe that they can change it. They don't even believe that there's some way to respond differently. And the things that we learn in terms of society and cultural norms, right? You say, oh well, my parents grew up entrepreneurs, my grandparents were entrepreneurs. It's something that I know, so I'm gonna be everyone expecting me to be an entrepreneur, and maybe that's not actually who I want to be. Maybe I want a 9 to 5. Maybe I want some type of you know security or stability, according to the industry that I want to choose to be in. And like if I had all the money in the world and wasn't aware of the problems, it wouldn't do me no good. And I think what happens a lot of times, I was talking to relatives yesterday, um, like folks who have experienced being triggered easily into rage, into anger. I think those folks know that counting to 10 doesn't always work. But also, it's like maybe the things that used to upset you don't upset you no more. And when that happens, you're like, oh, well, I had an episode in months, or I I really, been enraged in at least a year, or right, the whole pandemic. well, how much thought have you given since the last episode to the issue? If you're still blowing up, right? It's gonna be aware that it's a problem. But if you are not blowing up and you're not being enraged and you're not being triggered, that is the best time to tackle those things and those emotions and those feelings. Just say, oh well, I know it was a while since I blew up or messed up or was enraged. Like maybe it's time for me to think back to that last time, and while I'm calm, think back to that last time and say, oh well, what was I really mad at being triggered by this in this moment, right? And I can point at all the active friendships and relationships and say, oh well, this is because so and so said it, or this is what happened last time. It's like, well, maybe, right? You are you're living at one end of the spectrum and you've never been to the other side, and you don't know what 8 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1, what that looks like, feels like, because you've been living at 9 10 for so long. Even when you get a lot of money, that's not where you spending it because you think 9 and 10 is normal. And I just think I just want folks to know again, right, that you can get help, and just because you ain't blew up, it's probably the best time to talk talk about what you are struggling with currently, or what you have a history of struggling with, things that stand out where you caused harm and lashed out based on you know someone's reaction to something you said, or someone's reaction to your intentionality. Someone's reaction can help light up the world or throw it in the darkness, from an interactivity societal standpoint.
I mean, I just want to acknowledge. I really love what you said. Coming from a family where a lot of people did, hearing the phrase, "It's been a long time since I had an episode." It was like being sent through a portal of all these previous moments in time that I hold near and dear. Of hearing loved ones say,
Mm,
"Man, it's been a minute since I had an episode." It just that in itself, like a
yeah,
tangent, right?
yeah,
Um, it just so encompasses self reflection, right? Because I think that's a lot of what and I took away from what you said.
yeah,
Self reflection goes a long way because it gives you the space to feel grateful about yourself. I haven't had an episode in such a long time. Goes to show that you in some way, by the grace of God or just in your own subconscious, you found a way to get away from, and that's worth an applause. That's worth the victory and the exclamation of joy to know that you haven't been in harm, because that's what it is. When to have an episode means some
right,
harm has been and put on me, infringed on me, and I'm ready to commit myself to reflecting that harm back, or whatever the source is. Right? We do have a comment. I do want to mention. Elfer Broski on Twitch said, "Yeah, the pandemic was enraging." That was
mm,
about 4 minutes ago, and it's just one of those things where it's like not only was it enraging, it only intensified rage that was already there.
yeah,
It People before the situation took place have made comments in my community, within my vicinity, around the fragility of life, right? Around like In any given moment, this could just like I could lose my job. Like people would say like, "Oh, I'm not trying to lose my job." You saying that in some capacity in relation to losing your job, right? Oh yeah, I can't do that right now. It's kind of bad, right? All of these different things were going on already, where people were acknowledging that there was a a level of like this could go left, right? This could all go away, right? And it's like we
Mm-hmm.
hold on. Like I remember I was in toxic just and when I say toxic, I mean extremely harmful situations where my coping mechanisms was like I'm finna go get drunk and get turned up with my people. And the outcome was me having to nurse myself back to health because I had committed myself to these actions that needed me to nurse myself back to health, right? Whether it's a hangover, throwing up, whatever the case, being a ball of chaos to my loved one, my partner, right? It's a thing where I'm in a place where my actions to cope with the events of harm and hurt that I'm in is to inoculate myself or be intoxicated, right, with all of these different substances so I can then get some sleep, peace of mind, because my inhibitions and my thoughts are somewhat being subsided, right? Because I'm not engaging in any form of therapeutic outlets, right? Or if I am, I'm so bent, I'm so turned in terms of like me accessing what I know is going to cause me some sense of wellness, right? I'm so removed from it. I'm in such a place
Right.
of pain. I just want the easy thing, right? I can admit that in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Whereas as I've learned, you know what? I can't go back there. I reflected, right? Like, oh, you know what? I got to do X, Y, Z, right? So then what do? I then start being in the places where I feel love or I feel compassion or I see there's a reflection around me, right? Hence lyrical ones, right? Hence the meaning of being in spaces where I can see there's reciprocation of energy that isn't going to be destructive to me. That's not going to tear me down, right? I'm going to like this thought crossed my path many times. Sometimes you walking into your glory is literally you just walking into it. Most people think it's just gonna fall upon them. Like they think it's just gonna happen, like someone's gonna cast a light on you. When reality is the light's over there and you just gotta walk to it. No one's gonna shine it on you. You gotta step into it, right? And I'm not saying in terms of like, oh my goodness, I won the Olympics. All my magnificent greatness was bestowed upon me because I just decided to walk. No, I decided to go into the direction of what is the outcome I'm seeking. If I'm seeking love and I'm seeking compassion, I'm seeking some sense of like growth, and I see there's people or I'm asking around, right? Going back to what Affluent said about help, right? You gotta acknowledge that you need help and then you gotta ask for help. And you gotta be willing to get rejected, right? It's hard. It hurts. It is such a horrible feeling to be rejected. But resiliency comes into play, and you got to have that baseline of what's around me right now that's going to give me some sense of belief, right? Sometimes we got to remove ourselves from everything we love and everything that gave us comfort and be in an uncomfortable situation for a while to help reinforce ourselves and create a foundation where we're like, okay, you know what? I can ask for help and I can deal with rejection, right? I can ask for help and know that maybe I might get access to someone or something and it's not for me, but I'm willing to go through it because it's going to get me to the next thing. It's a journey, it's a process. There's going to be some dead ends, there's going to be some potholes, but it's going to get me in the process of going towards what I need to, right? Not looking at failure as a discouragement, but looking at failure as this is just another thing that I need to learn across along the journey, right? We got Elfer Broski coming in again, right? It shows how bad people really have it and how the rich are so shielded from everything, and that's true. That fabric reality of society as we see it more and more, it's shifting. You're seeing the dynamics happen. It doesn't always look the same, but it's happening, right? When you see and you look at this
Yeah.
gas go up, and you look at this huge gap that we have, right, between the have and have not, and yet this this luxury necessity that we have, right, for some, right. I was just saying, um, in the city, SF, for those not aware, it's hard to find parking, right? Now, when you are multi generational from this area, cars are a part of the fabric of this world. It is. right? You know what it means to be in a car ride. You know what it either to take a nap or have someone take a nap on you. You know what it means to have that level of access and freedom because it is now you engaging in society where you have more autonomy, automobile, autonomy, right? Now, yes, public transportation is great in San Francisco, but once you leave outside of San Francisco and go into what El Fabrowski said, right, about how the rich are so shielded from everything, right? If you can't afford to live here, that means you're further outside of the city. Even though the city is seen as a metropolitan hub for a lot of resources, jobs, opportunities, which a lot of people do seek out and come to, right? When we talk about UCSF, right, being
Mm.
one of the largest employers in Northern California, right? It's in the name, SF, right? So a lot of people come to the city for a multitude of reasons, right? There's city jobs, right? There's working for the service industry. There's so many different layers. And when you can't afford a car because parking is not free or accessible or readily available, right? There's people who can afford a ticket, right? And this goes back to that, I think it was Final Fantasy quote, right? If a law exists for the penalty only to be money, then that means this law only exists for the poor, right? Final Fantasy video games, you better figure it out. So the thing is, right? You got people coming from Fairfield, Vallejo, right? From San Jose, from all over, right? East Palo Alto, right? Pittsburgh. They're coming to the city for opportunities, resources, and they're dependent on public transportation when the public transportation in each of those areas are not as robust or as frequent as what we have in San Francisco. Yet in San Francisco, where a lot of people live, not sleep, live, it's a big difference. People live here, they don't sleep here, right? And they can't afford any aspect of it other than just trying to be there to get some money so they can afford their life outside of it,
Yeah.
right? So here we are, right? We're looking at help, right? We're looking at odds. We're looking at the fabric of society, and as the further we get into this, the more we're going to see how people are going to have to seek out each other and find that help to redefine what the value system is, to redefine what the metrics are, right? Where it's like,
Mm.
okay, we agree together as a group, right? This is yeah, people may not like this. NFTs is the perfect example of people
Yeah.
redistributing wealth. We're saying, okay, if y'all got the dollar, well, we have a tool that we're going to barter with that we can exchange not just for goods, but we could use as something that has value. If you're not going to give us space, we going to make space. Imagine that. It's hard to afford having a physical space, but you can buy digital space and use that as a means to acquire some sense of value, of some sense of wealth, of some sense of a transactionable thing that you can agree upon
Yeah.
to access a world outside of what the rich have been having full control over for centuries, right? So looking at what Alpha Broski is saying, he's saying the society is toxic, right? It's hard to be stuck, right? That's what he's saying. And it's not to denounce any of it. It is hard. It doesn't always help. It's one of those things where, as difficult as it can be, these are the ways that we learn how to change, redirect, how to overcome. It's not going to be in an isolated individual way. It's going to be in a communal movement. It's going to be when people come together, right? This is us having the conversation, but by all means, this is a starting point for people to think differently because as nihilistic as I can be, as as much as I can be stricken with nepotism, right? A sense of entitlement to what I was told was the American dream or what I was given in terms of the promise of what I could be, right? I can be pessimistic in
Mm.
my thoughts on what the cup looks like and what I don't have. Or I can actually look and lean and go in the direction of, well, where am I best served? Where am I building the skills that cannot be taken away from me? That I can use those skills to support others because everyone has a skill, whether they believe it or not. And if they don't have a skill, you can get a skill. There's always room for growth. There's always room for exploration. And back to what Alfluence said at the beginning, right? Loving that learning, right?
Yeah.
Society has done an incredible job of discouraging and damaging people from the joy and the beauty of education, right? I'm not talking within the confines of the walls. I'm talking about life and experiencing. I'm talking about failure,
Trial
right?
and error. That's right.
It's done such a good job of pushing people into not believing in themselves, questioning themselves, right? Filling themselves with negative thoughts and patterns that are so destructive because they feel incapable of retaining information or they feel incapable of executing what they've learned. When in reality, everyone has the ability, everyone has the chance. I'll be the first to say, to admit, to show if you're willing to find something and you're willing to learn, there's value that can always be magnified, multiplied in your life,
Yeah.
right? I hate the fact that we've been in this cycle for so long where people have been harmed in this way. But I'll be the first one to tell you, like, look, there's a means, there's a way. It's not something for you to feel is insurmountable in terms of trying to overcome it. It's quantifiable and you can get past it. By all means, you can get past it. It's gonna suck at times. It's gonna be hard, but guess what? After it's hard, it gets easy, and after it's easy, it becomes effortless, right? You look at so many things that you may do now that's like nothing, right? You don't even think twice about it. Oh, the way I threw that trash off the wall and it bounced off the back of the door and it hit the trash can, right? It may be nothing to you, right? The way that you were able to pop off a bottle cap, right? Super quick. Nobody even noticed you did it, right? It might
Mhm.
be nothing to you. Somebody's going to be amazed at your effortlessness because of your mastery of whatever that is. That applies to everything else, right? That applies to whatever you decide to do. If you want to change brakes, right, to a mechanic, it's like, oh man, you're going to pay how much for your oil to get changed? For the mechanic, it's easy. Why? Because the mastery of the skill, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't tie your shoes like that, child. I'm gonna show you a way. Mastery of a skill, right? You already have it, right? You've already done it. Sometimes the world beats down on you and it becomes harder and harder to even believe. But there's someone who's happy to hear from you. There's someone who loves your jokes. There's someone who is just happy that you're in their life, right? They want to spend time with you. They want to kick it. They want to be around you. And
Right.
it's like, what more do you need to know that you have value in a world where, yeah, we could look at the rich, we could look at the wealthy. No, no, at every level, they don't care about us. The only thing they care about is us adding into their wealth. And then you can look at the world around you and say, you know what? What agreements are we going to make today so we make our community more valuable, that we make the people around us more valuable? What are we willing to do, right, to turn the tide? Because the tide is already turning, it's already happening. We're looking at it right now. There's people sleep at the wheel, right? We keep voting all these geriatric, old, outdated, untouched, like out of touch, nowhere near what modern life is. I heard the other day that when it comes to Congress and most major senators or politicians that make changes, majority, if not all, or 99% own property. Yet there's so many people who rent. How are any of these people representing us when they don't represent all of us? It's a lot to think about. But again, when
Yeah.
we don't talk about these things, when we don't know these things, we can blindly keep going forward with, oh yeah, let's support these people who don't have no means or care to support us. They only want to serve a system to try and manage so they can maintain their power, their title. And so for me, it's one of those things where it's like, look, I ain't talking about a war, but I say things can change. Some can be different. I mean, affluent. Any
Yeah.
thoughts, words for the people of episode 94 of Lyrical Ones?
Right. As always, like letting go is important, but like holding on to the things that shape you, that make you you, um, can be full of a lot of different emotions. And there doesn't always have to be a a judgment value on the emotion. It doesn't have to be good or bad, right or wrong. You can just feel to the point. that you know yourself. It's like there's a reason why, you know, capitalism is the root of the experiment of democracy. Right? It's like if I can get someone to focus on the outside to acquire things, just take money, right? Just taking money, right? There's a lot of people who don't like money, right? Who who have jobs and who get paid, and a lot of people don't have money. But the idea, right? The practice of removing your cares so that you can learn about yourself is important. Remove those external cares, right? The feeling, the need to acquire, the need to get, and take a page from the government's book and cut all that stuff off. Cut off the thing, the external things, and get to learn yourself. Because then, when you learn yourself, then you can know what you need, and when you know what you need, you can vote properly. You can vote the way that you need to for what you need, and then you can also share with others. Hey, what changed my life was learning about me. When I learned about me, however long it took, over how many years, hours, how many weekends it took me being still and getting in, going deeper into my body, learning more about the ship that I'm navigating, right? Then I say, oh, then I can know how far the ship can take me, right? It's like if I'm in a Y wing, there's no way I'm I'm skating through the outer rim for anything. It's like, man, this ship's slow. All I got is light speed, but I can't do nothing else with it. Like knowing the ship that you're in, knowing the vessel that you're in will allow you to set a destination. Like how you gonna set a destination and you don't even know how far the ship could take you. You might not ever get there because you don't know what you need. You don't know even how to fuel yourself properly. And if you can't fuel yourself properly, then you can't refuel as you give your energy to the things that matter to you, to the people that matter to you, to the ideas and concepts and causes that matter to you. You'll burn out because you don't even know how to fuel yourself. You don't know how to pour back into yourself. So, man, learn yourself as soon as you can, as much as you can, as often as you can.
Episode 94 of the Lyrical One. As everything falls apart, as it often does at this time, but I'll try to
And falls together.
it all, if it all falls together for the audio only listeners. Uh, I'm using some new technology, and I'm learning that technology, which means that it ain't always something to watch when I'm, doing my thing. So,
Fail
doing my thing.
fast, my friend. Fail fast, my brother.
But needless to say, that's been episode 94 of Lyrical Ones. And yeah, just reflect, know when to ask for help, and be ready to go through it because it ain't always guaranteed. It ain't always a way. And sometimes that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. So, as the camera decides not to. Alpha Broski, thank you for coming through. Thank you for being here with us. I appreciate you. Appreciate your engagement. Shout out to Alpha Broski.
One, 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 one.